Good morning. Thank you for joining us for a very special user group that is dedicated to answering all of your questions that you might have up in this point about conversion. So this is a general session dedicated to you inputting your questions into that Q&A feature that you have, and we'll be going through with our lovely panelists today and answering all of those questions until we reach the 11:30 hour. We are recording this. We will be providing a playback that will be posted on the Transition Newsroom, and then potentially creating a companion written document to support this Q&A session as well. So definitely make sure you're checking the Transition Newsroom for all the latest and greatest information. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Shane, and he's going to get us started with a couple of ground rules, housekeeping, and we will dive right into our Q&A. But again, use that Q&A feature to make sure you're submitting your questions that you want addressed.
Great. Thanks, Kim. Good morning, everybody. I'm so glad to have you guys here with us today. Just a couple things, and while we're doing this, there have been a lot of questions coming in from you guys, and we actually had a situation going back now roughly 2 weeks ago where we were focused on training, and a lot of functional questions were heading our way in that train the trainer, session. So we wanted to have a user group, bring on these all-star panelists. You know, we can, with the group you've got here, we can cover just about anything you want to talk about. Mark here to help us from the CGI side if we get into something we don't understand. Jan, contract and business and billing and fees, because we know those questions come up. Barb, if we dig into policy or guidance or how I should be doing something. Lisa is not only has some functional expertise, but also some expertise, because I've already seen some questions around testing. I've already seen some stuff come in. And then, of course, Kim, who can certainly come back and answer questions if she wants to. So I'm going to be turning my head occasionally. I have the Q&A up beside me. I'll be throwing it to folks. Other folks can jump in if we need some perspective or if I miss. Mark, unfortunately, as you can see his camera cutting on and off, and whatever he's doing is having some PC problems today. We do have the ability to potentially pop in and demonstrate something. So Mark, I have my UAT up if we do need to go in and show anything.
Okay.
We can share the screen, and maybe you could guide me through it if we have to do that, if we have to go that direction. So no question is off the table today, but please be conscious of trying not to repeat questions and things like that. We'll go until the questions run out or until 11:30. But the promise we always make to you guys, if we don't get to your question, we can document everything and we'll have somebody follow up. Doesn't mean it's directly one of us, could be an account executive, depending on what entity you're in. But certainly we'll be able to follow up with you and all that. So without, I don't know, Kim, did I miss anything?
No, I think the only thing that we want to just remind everybody of is, from their perspective, they're only going to see questions that move over from, we've got an open list of questions that you guys can't see that you guys are submitting. And so any questions that get answered, panelists, if you'll just either click on answer live, or if you're going to type an answer to be associated with it and answer it live, you can do that as well. And then once that it moves over into answered, that is when everybody will be able to see that reflected. But again, we're recording this and we'll be offering the playback so we can make sure that these questions get answered. And as Shane mentioned, we will make sure that even if your question's not read live, that we get that type of follow-up for you, or a reference document, because there's a lot of potential that some of these questions you have are out on the conversion roadmap. They're on the important state documents. They're on two of the other resource documents that PCR's put together out there about, orders and solicitations. So hopefully we can point you back to some of these resources that maybe you just haven't taken the time to explore.
And I'll also remind our panelists here, if a question comes your way, because I see Lisa's already marked one that she'd like to handle, please reread the question, panelists, read it, hey, this is, and then we'll answer it. So I'll go ahead and dig in. And And I guess, I hope I do this and it doesn't make the question disappear. Oh, good. Because I can mark it, the one I want to do there. I've just, and again, I might turn my head occasionally because I've got a second screen where I've got the questions up so I can read them. So first question that I'll take, and then the second one is going to go to Lisa. She's going to pick that one up. First question from Monica Johnson. In the new EVA, when there are POs cut against contracts, what contract number show on the POs? So let me, this is a clarification area. So if the contract is loaded into EVA, all right, so, and get your mind with the new system, right? So you either have contracts now, we're going to convert them for you and put them in the new system, or you award a contract or you do a standalone contract in the new system. If you do a contract purchase, the contract details that are loaded into EVA will be what ends up on the PO or on the individual line items, okay? However, so that is one method. This has been I'm doing this very slowly and talking very slowly because we've seen this question a lot and it's caused a lot of confusion. However, there will be, and we know there's entities that do not use the contract functionality in EVA. There will be an external contract number field on the line item, and it's going to be titled external contract number. And that field will be available for those of you out there that do not use our contract management functionality, okay, or our contract functionality in EVA. So kind of two methods there, all right? External contract number for anything external, anything that's not loaded into the system. Let's say either you don't use our contract management tool, or let's say it's a cooperative or something like that. It's just not loaded, and you just want to record the fact that you've used a contract on that purchase. There will be a field for that. Everything else, if you use the contract functionality in EVA, the contract details come in. There's a little bit of a nuance to that because it actually gives you the name of the contract, and you can click on it and get more details about the contract. But you get the idea. If the contract's loaded into EVA, that's what will populate the contract number field. And there's some really cool functionality for managing contract spend if you're using our contract management tool. I think those of you that are using the full suite of tools and will award and move things to contract, within EVA, I think you're going to really like what happens there. So Monica, I hope that answers your question. The next question is, and Catherine, I hope I don't mess up your name. Babo, maybe is how you pronounce that. But Catherine B, how about that? And Lisa actually marked that she would like to answer that. So Lisa, go ahead.
All right. So
I got Catherine's name right. She just chatted.
I'm going to stick with Catherine.
All right.
So the question that she asked is, will there be a test pilot for the new EVA that we can practice with before it launches? I need to learn the new system so I can train our users in our agency. So if you are set up in our Train the Trainer program, and if you are, you've been engaged with that for over at least a month now, you currently have access to what is our testing sandbox environment that is not set up for your agency at this time. It is very generic and general for functionality and getting familiar. So if you're in the Train the Trainer program, that is set up now. If you are not in the Train the Trainer program and you are looking for access to our test environment, we have a survey in the buyer portal where you can fill out some basic information, and just so we have a good idea so we can make sure you're set up correctly. But if you log into the current EVA buyer portal now, on the top right-hand side, there's a notifications menu, and in that list should be a link for you to click and fill out, so that way we can identify you as a tester. And as soon as we are ready to open up that environment, we will. One of the things that we want to wait for is we know that a lot of you, the generic environment, maybe not best for you because you want to focus on your approval flows, your organization setup, and we have a few more design issues that we're working through. So our goal right now, we've kind of been shifting around, looking towards making sure everything is right for you after Summit, because we know a lot of you guys are going to be joining us next week for Summit. So really the testing environment and the support that you might need wouldn't be available. So that's really our game plan, is having that, pushing that back a little bit so we can make sure your approval flows and everything are set up specific to you. And Catherine, I hope that answers your question.
Thanks, Lisa. And Barb Lehman, next question I'm going to lob to you. And I know there's an area on the transition webpage that you can reference, because I know you built the guidance for this, you and your team. So the question from Michelle Braxton is, please clarify the actions needed for current blanket purchase orders before cutoff.
Thank you, Shane. Now I wish I had the Q&A up on my other screen as well. However, let me see how, let me see if I can navigate this for everybody. So the primary reason that we want you to finish the receiving on blanket orders for what you have actually received. We're certainly not asking anyone to do anything they should not be doing in regards to receipts or purchase orders. So please hear me clearly about that. But purchase orders that do get converted to the new tool, just because of the conversion process and moving from one platform to another, you will not be able to receive against any purchase orders that convert into the new platform, okay? You will only be able to cancel and reissue for something that gets converted into the new platform, okay? Of course, there will be receiving available for POs that you create in the new platform, all right? So we are strongly recommending that you do a change order today to reconcile your purchase orders, right? So you've got a purchase order for 100 items, 100 hours, whatever the quantity is. You've received 50 of that 100, and you don't expect to receive the other 50 until after conversion. So we are recommending that you do your change order to bring your quantity of goods ordered, goods or services ordered and received to reconcile, right? To balance. And then you close out that purchase order, right? So that does not convert into the new tool and then into the new platform. And so then once we convert, you create a purchase order for that remaining or whatever you do expect to receive, or whatever, still needs to be reordered in that case. And then you would, conduct that, do that work like you would normally do, right? So you receive it and it processes on through the tool. So I hope that's what you're asking, Michelle, and I hope that makes sense to folks. Jan?
And I'll add that by doing that reconciliation or doing that change order will automatically adjust the fees on the billing side to both the agency and the supplier. So it will reduce any balance that hasn't been used, and that will then pick up on the next supplier's invoice or the next agency invoice. Then after transition, any new purchase order that you have to, in essence, open or put that balance back out, any fees would then apply for that.
Barb, would you like me to show the transition newsroom page and where they can find your reference document?
That would be
Yes,
awesome, Tim.
please.
So-
Because there's a reference to this with written guidance
Yes.
out there. That would be
All
awesome.
right.
Thank you. And Jan, thank you for chiming in, because that is often the follow-up question that we get once we start talking about this is, what about the fees? So thank you, Jan.
Absolutely. So from the transition newsroom, this is where we are off of the EVA website. There are different sections now if you haven't visited recently. So the conversion roadmap is located here along with our important dates. And then under this section for our professional purchasers, we have down under resources. That's a wrap. Close open orders before cutover, and then another supporting document associated with solicitations. So if under resources, you have not come out and visited either of those documents, what Barb was just talking about is in the that's a wrap close open orders before cutover. So that's guidance from our policy consulting and review, that wonderful team there to support you through this transition with some of those frequently asked questions. So please go back and reference that document.
Thank you, Kim.
My pleasure. Let's move on to the next question, Shane.
Awesome. This is from Susan Borum. We are required to order food supplies from VDC every week by noon on Wednesday. What will happen the week of transition for ordering options from mandatory sources that use the punch out catalog and EVA to order? So the week of, I'm going to answer this two ways. The week of transition, so that week of December leading up to when we're going to take the environment and turn off the existing platform and then do the conversion, and for Monday, January 3rd, reset the new platform. You're going to have all your EVA tools, again, with some caveats, as you guys are well aware of some things we're not able to do, specifically around VVO buyer, is one thing that comes to mind, but we've talked about that. But for ordering, the VDC punch out will be in place in the existing environment through Thursday, December 30th at noon is when we're planning on taking the environment. So you'll be able to place that order that week. When you come back on January 3rd, you're going to log into EVA and the new environment's going to be there. And mandatory sources such as VDC, assuming the conversion goes well, will be up for you the week of January 3rd for you to place those orders. And yes, Barb.
Thank you, Shane. I just would like to add that we are strongly encouraging you all to kind of self-impose a blackout period for new orders on your users. Just because you need some time for those orders to fully move through your workflow and your approval process, right? So only fully ordered purchase orders, right? So PO that is in composing status or submitted status and has not been fully approved in your entity's workflow will not convert, right? So it has to be fully ordered in order for it to convert over to the new platform. So we're encouraging you all to do that. I think if you, in this case, Susan, with having to have your order issued by Wednesday, just, be mindful of the fact you will need to get that done in that last week, so that it gets through to VDC, in time. So that's all.
Awesome. Thanks, Barb. Thanks, Barb. Next question from Dean Stubbs, SSO FIM update. Still waiting to get the new setup information to our IT area to ensure we can have that running at launch on our end. Lisa, thank you, Lisa, if you want to jump in and help with that. I know you'd been coordinating with some folks to get that going.
I've been coordinating behind the scenes with folks to get the answer. So
Cool.
Our lovely security officer, Yana Urbe, has shared with me that they have a kickoff meeting scheduled for November 10th with the contacts that have been identified that do the setup. So the IT folks should be aware. If your folks have not been connected with and you leverage single sign-on, and we do this for you. Our wonderful IT lead for this project, Joel Pato, sets that up and coordinates with Vita for those of you that are COVA in scope agencies. So if you are logging in now to the buyer portal using COV, you don't have to do anything. We're taking care of that for you. For higher educations or those of you that would like to leverage the single sign-on platform, just make sure your account executive knows your technical folks that we need to coordinate with, and they will get that information to our security officer to make sure you're on that kickoff meeting to get started.
Great. Thanks, Lisa. Appreciate you scrambling behind the scenes on that one to get the answer to that one. Appreciate it. And next question, this is a larger one from Chris Banizek. And Mark, I'm probably going to need you for this just to confirm. So it's a longer question, but I think it's important, and I want to read it out so that we're clear. And I think it's a positive answer, but I just want to make sure. So Chris says he needs to post an RFP at the end of this month that needs to be out on the street for at least 2 months. Large RFP with medically complex requirements. Now, I'm hoping, Chris, and I'm going to assume that you're using sourcing and contracting, not VBO buyer, because we do have some rules with VBO buyer. Oh, there you go. Chris just answered it. So great. He's using sourcing and contracting. Thank you, Chris. If I post the solicitation in November, end of this month, with no intent for proposals to be due until late January 2022, will I be able to receive electronic proposals in the new system once it converts? Mark just gave a thumbs up. The answer is yes. I thought that was the case, but I wanted to make sure. And then he says, another way to ask the same question, if an open solicitation is converted using sourcing and contracting to the new platform, but the due date is well after the conversion or transition date, can we receive proposals electronically at that time when the new systems come up? And the answer is yes. So that is awesome, Chris. That's great. Woo! All right. I think just some kind of heads up on that one though, Chris, and for everybody. Number one, you have to be using sourcing and contracting, which Chris confirmed. The other thing is you want to make sure, maybe in a comment, a description, that you put some clarity in about when to respond. Because if your suppliers respond before the cutover date, that becomes an issue, as we are not converting responses. It puts your procurement at risk, specifically for an RFP in your case, which I'm sure is sealed. We can't convert sealed responses because you got to break them open, which that puts the procurement at risk. You're opening responses before they're supposed to be done. So, kind of, Chris, for you personally, and then for everybody out there, if this is a situation you're in where you've got to get something out and it's got a long time frame, and you would like to receive responses, or even if you're going to get paper responses and key them in, you're going to want to do all that after the conversion. You're going to want to do all that starting January 3rd. So good answers all the way around. And Chris, that is an awesome question.
And we've talked about this before with internally, Chris. Thank you for asking that question. We will be sure to have some guidance, because I think your vendors will not be able to submit anything electronically in the last couple of weeks of December for sure. And so we will be sure to have guidance out there, because if your contract officers need to do something in the new platform, right, to allow those electronic responses, you may have to you may end up issuing an amendment for that. So, but we'll make sure that we have the guidance out there. Lisa.
So I just wanted to add to that a little bit, is that the specific date. So electronic responses, our suppliers will not be able to submit them in the current tool from December 15th to cutoff. So cutover, which is December 30th. So there will be a 15-day period that they will not be able to submit electronics responses. Also, please work with your account executives for those specific solicitations if you do intend to accept electronic responses, and coordinate with them, so that way we can work with you and support you through that too. We've done some things throughout the system. If you look in the portal now, you will see alerts and messages communicating to you when that cutoff for electronic responses is going on within the solution. And just to provide, I'm going to jump in. There was another question in here that I think Susan had asked. I'm scrolling to find it so I can read it. And the question was, after December 1st, we cannot post new advertisements in the current EVA portal. That is false. You absolutely still will be able to post all of your advertisements in EVA up until our cutover period in time. And you will just have to move to the new sourcing and the current sourcing and contracting platform to be able to do that. So if your organization is using VBO Buyer, I highly encourage you now to reach out to your account executive, because if you have a posting that you would traditionally post in VBO Buyer, an IFB and RFP, they can support you with getting that posted in sourcing and contracting. Quick Quote will still be there. You'll still be able to post those, but VBO Buyer after December 1st will be disabled for posting new and amended solicitations.
And Barb just threw into the chat the Find My Account Executive link. So you can look up, if you're like, who is my account executive? You can look that up and figure out who that person is. So thank you, Barb. And thank you, Lisa. Next question, Michelle Canoe. Will requisitions in submitted status at the time of conversion be converted into composing status in the new system, or will they not be converted? And then, this is, Michelle kind of added on to the back. She feels like she's seen kind of mixed messages on that. And Michelle would be correct about that as far as kind of a change. When we initially, back in August, put out our conversion guidelines, or what we've called the conversion roadmap, on the same page Kim just showed you, there's conversion information and details about where all that comes. We did have, oh, there she goes, Kim switching over. We did have initially thought we were going to convert submitted requisitions and submitted status. After doing some research and going through the conversion steps, requisitions that are in submitted status that are not fully approved will not be converted. Again, I will repeat, will not be converted. This, and that was a change. I apologize, I can't remember exactly when we made that change. We did talk about it in one of our user group meetings, and the roadmap has since been updated. And I think that decision was made a couple months ago. However, great question to ask for clarification purposes. And that gets into the comment Barb just made a few minutes ago when I was talking about VDC. And oh, well, VDC will be there. You can place your order. Well, Barb was also saying, hey, you guys really should think about what that means from a cutoff perspective about getting orders in, so that things do get processed and you don't have orders caught in the pipeline. Particularly think about the week that we're in when we're doing and getting ready to transition. That is between Christmas and New Year's. We're taking the environment at noon on the 30th. The 31st is a holiday for most people. I know the universities are shut down during that period of time. I know a lot of you take vacation. So Barb wisely said, hey, you need to be considering, you don't want to fire off an order the morning of the 30th, knowing that you might have a lot of people on vacation for the holidays and things like that. So certainly some things to think about, as far as your own, maybe the system's going to be there. You can do pretty much everything you need to do, but oh man, just making sure you have plans to make sure those things get processed.
And I think, again, I'm referencing Transition Newsroom Conversion Roadmap. This is your guide. So this is a section by module, all about, EMAL, and then the requisitions, the status that they're in, and whether they're converting or not. And then this kind of transitions us, Shane, if you'd like to look at the next question, into quick quote and, the cutoff for that, and around questions you might have, again, to reference this document so that you understand what your game plan needs to be depending on the status of what you're trying to create in terms of a requisition, a quick quote, or something that might be a sourcing project.
Right. And I think Barb had a comment too.
Well, I just wanted to say that a couple of questions down from Michelle's in the list, we have one from Brandon Spencer that asks the exact same thing. So I just want to make sure I'm just tossing that out there, that I think we've answered that. So I don't think we need to hit.
Yeah,
Brandon's
feel free
again
just
we
to
come
mark that
down.
as
So,
answered.
Yep.
Yep, thank you.
Yep, you can mark it as done. Thank you, Barb. Thank you for helping us clean up the list there. We got a lot of good questions. I can see them piling up. It's great. It's great. So, and thank you, Michelle. That's a good clarification question. It is updated in the conversion roadmap, where Kim is sharing that with us right now. That does take us, and as Kim mentioned, it's a good companion to the next question from Christina Hawkinson or Hokinson. Again, I'm hoping I'm not butchering your last name, and I apologize if I am. Please confirm that the last day for a quick quote will be December 15th. Does that mean after that date until January 3rd, no new postings are possible? Not exactly. That is kind of getting into what we just talked about. That is absolutely a suggested date. Now, to be clear, we're not converting any quick quotes, right? The only information that would be converted from a quick quote is if you had a purchase order that's still open, and hasn't been done, we'll convert those purchase orders, or basically your awards. And some of you might have created standalone contracts for your quick quote awards. And if they're still open and have active periods and renewals, they'll convert as well. The quick quote data itself, as Kim is on right here, things that are closed, things that are awarded, things that are canceled, things that are composing, they're not coming over. However, we're not necessarily taking quick quote away from you. We put the December 15th date on there because we don't want to, it's kind of a suggestion, like if quick quote's open for a few days, you get around December 15th, you need to be real careful, because just like we mentioned with blackout periods, if you issue a quick quote, you got to leave it out for a minimum of 3 days. You got to evaluate it. You got to award it. You want to make sure you leave yourself enough time to wrap those up. So again, it's kind of we threw out December 15th. It doesn't mean we're going to cut anything off per se, but boy, you guys need to be real conscious of those dates and make sure you give yourself enough air that if you issue a quick quote, you're able to wrap it up. You're able to save yourself time for evaluation and award and things like that. The good news, first thing, Monday morning, January 3rd, if you have some quick quotes piled up, that functionality is going to be there for you. Quick quote's going to be available. If you have access to quick quote now, you'll have it in the new system, and you can start issuing quick quotes Monday morning, January 3rd, just right out of the gate. You can start doing them, and that functionality is going to be available. So Christina, thank you for that question. That's a good one. The next question from Cynthia Norman is just, what changes have been made to the receiving portion of the new system? I don't know that there's really been, it's different without getting into training and walkthrough and things like that. It's you go in and receive. There's some really great functionality. I would suggest, Kim, help me. We did a user group, and John Kapler from CGI did a walkthrough of requisitioning, ordering, and receiving, and he did a live demo of that. I can't remember which user group that was. Was it October? September?
I believe that it was in September
September
that he provided that. So every month we've had August, September, and October included live demos. So if you have not revisited the buyer user group, that is again on the transition newsroom under those purchasing professionals section, then you want to make sure that you visit those playbacks. You can fast forward to whichever piece might be of interest to you and watch and rewatch those demonstrations.
Yep. So September, there was receiving was covered. There's really not a whole lot of differences. One difference is in the existing system, we call it a receipt shell, or the receipt is automatically created when the order goes to ordered status. In this case, in the new system, it's not, but it's very easy to go in, pull up your orders, hit create receipt, and then all that starts. It's also a lot easier to do returns if you need to return things. It's a lot easier to change and adjust receipts, I feel like. But again, John Kapler did a demo of this in September, we think, and the recording is posted on the Transition Newsroom. Also, Cynthia, if you are attending the forum, there will be a session about ordering, or the summit, excuse me, we're calling it Summit. One of the sessions is all about requisition, ordering, receiving. That'll be covered. You'll get to see it there. If that session's full and you can't get into it, if you are a summit attendee, you'll be able to watch that session after the fact. And then in the coming, I don't want to mess up the date here. Training for requisitioning, end user training is coming, and receiving is covered as part of that training. So so a lot of answers are coming around that, but great question. I personally think you're going to like the receiving module. It's real quick to get to orders. I think the adjusting receipts, where now we have to do negative receiving, it's a much easier process. But again, training's coming. You can watch that September demo. If you're coming to the summit, you can get into that session and watch that, or at least watch the recording after the fact. So lots of good ways to get that information. This next question from Michelle Canul, and this could impact a lot of you guys, is when will it be possible to see the queue manager functionality? And I don't know if I don't want to put Lisa or Mark on the spot, but when I'm not sure if the workflow has been configured to that. Go ahead.
Mark, you want to take it? Because I was chatting you to get the answer.
That's fine. So so Shane, you asked when to make sure I get the question right. When is the workflow data going to be there, or when is they're going to be able to see what queue manager feature of Evaluate can do?
Queue manager right now is the question, but the workflow question is a good one too.
The workflow data we're in the process of converting. I think the expectation is hopefully we'll be through it this week, do some review of it early next week, and then release it into whatever test environment, be UAT or wherever we want it to be at the end of the week. The queue manager, I thought John was going to do a demo, but I guess not. It might be something good for the a quick little demo at not forum. What's it called now, Shane?
Summit.
Queue manager itself, the feature in Evaluate is there. Essentially, when you're progressing through a workflow, you can then, once things are in a role, you can then choose who you'd like to assign it to. I think it's just that the feature is there, but it is dependent on the workflow being there and turning on that feature. So those two things go hand in hand. I think it's probably a good topic at Summit to just kind of show really quickly. It's fairly easy to use,
Okay.
But I think that's where you want to do it.
That's great. That can be a note for John, because I think John's handling that session at the Summit with our ordering and receiving guys. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. Quick one here from Susan Bosch. Will we need to create a new username and login for the new system, new platform? No. All that will be converting, as well as your access for those of you that have access to multiple entities. So no need to do a new username and password. The next question from Lynn Enders, Kim actually has that marked as wanting to answer. So Kim, knock it out.
I do, and I am speaking on behalf of Iana Irby, who is our Global Security Officer for the platform. And she has informed me, Lynn, to pass along to you and anyone else who might be interested in security officer training. Security officers with user management have a training on December 28th. So as with other things, I'm anticipating, and if it's not happening, we'll make it happen, that it'll be recorded and offered for playback, because we realize that's during some holiday and downtime, especially for the universities. And EVA security policies and standards have been updated, and they will be distributed later this week. So that is an answer coming from Yana, and thank you, Yana, so much for providing that to me so I could share it for the group.
Thanks, Kim. Awesome. So she'll mark that one off. Oh, there it goes. Thanks, Kim. I'm just going right down the list. So she just marked that one off and it disappeared. Marcia Sinclair Kelly. When purchase orders are converted into the new system, will suppliers that are set up to receive orders electronically receive the new purchase orders? Yes. If the supplier is set up to receive electronic, that's going to happen in the new system. Really cool setup for I don't want to get too into the nuance of how we're set up now, but quite honestly, in our existing platform, if you receive an electronic order, you are actually maintaining as a supplier a separate account right now. And so you've got your like EVA account, where you're maintaining your addresses and your business information and submitting bids, quite honestly, as a supplier. And then all your order processing catalogs are in a separate account. That's not the case anymore. When we move to the new platform, our suppliers their accounts will be consolidated into one account. So I think that's a really cool benefit. There's also some additional features around orders like acknowledgements and shipping notices and all sorts of cool things like that the suppliers can do to acknowledge the receipt of orders, and actually even generate a receipt to send back to you, like, hey, you ordered 10, I'm shipping 10, here you go, it's coming your way. And then that receipt goes into draft for you, and then when you get your items, you can just receive them. So there's some really cool features, but the short answer to that is yes. If you're set up to receive electronic orders as a supplier, you'll be able to do that in the new system. So great question, and thank you, Marcia. Next question is from Michelle Canul, and I don't know that I'm going to be able to show you this now because this isn't in yet, but if I'm reading your question correctly, and you can clarify it later, can you show us how a non-contract order, you said, can be converted to a contract requisition? I assume how you can do a non-contract or non-catalog order and add the contract number, I'm guessing is what you're asking there. The external contract number field has not been added in yet. It hasn't made it out of development and system test over into our UAT environment as of yet. I have seen it because in our conversion meetings that we have, that's the solution. And, you know, we've even said, well, we're going to park it right here. And I've seen all that from a, let's say from a high level design perspective. It's just not in any of the environments as of yet, but that will be coming. So again, I'm thinking, Michelle, that's what you were asking in that area. If not, you can clarify and get that retyped in from a question perspective. The next question here from Angela Bailey. I tried to get into the train the trainer and was told you could not add anyone new. I had done the survey back in July, but was on leave for a few weeks and did not get in then. Will you be accepting people now? I need to train my region as well. So Angela Bailey has a training question. What I'd like to do with that, Angela, is get that over to Sarah Lewis, who is leading our training efforts for us. I know they had moved so far along in the Train the Trainer program that they just had to lock things down because there's over 200 people in it right now. And it just became a number situation, and they're trying to get those trainers up to speed. I can tell you that the end user training is coming very soon, starting with requisitioning, and all those items are getting ready to kick off. So go ahead, Kim.
I just wanted to also, I'm going to continue to take you guys to the source of what you need to go and explore if you have questions. So again, the transition newsroom, there's a common theme there, right? So when you come under purchasing professionals, there's a section for buyer transition training. So this Train the Trainer has a tab specifically for that with a calendar of events on this page, but there are also learning pathways that you can explore and identify based on what your job function might be, including you can have a printable version of that, what to expect and when. So there are training resources, release time. So that's going to target different sections and learning pathways, as well as supporting documents. So if you know that you're a requisitioner, your requisitioner learning pathway, you have this very beautiful PDF that's been put together that will not only give you some information about what you can expect, but also a targeted amount of hours that you can expect that your total training might take. So I, again, encourage you to come out to the transition newsroom. And this, again, is going to be under the EVA testing section. And specifically, I'm sorry, I'm gone back to the wrong place. Transition newsroom. Yes, I want to reload. And that's going to be under this information for purchasing professionals.
And I just wanted to emphasize too that all of this, the setup and the training that Train the Trainers go through is going to be something that will continue throughout the life of the contract. It's not a one and done deal. It's just for the transition period. Right now, we have that little cutoff period in time so that way we can move forward and get people trained up. So we will be in the future offering more opportunities. If you were not able to participate in the current Train the Trainer program, that you would be able to participate in as well.
Great. Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, Kim. Barb, question directed specifically to you, even has your name in it. So from Letha Dickerson, Barb, so anything that will be received after December 31st, service or good, will need to be canceled in the current EVA? I don't think that's the case. And then add a new order in the new EVA, correct? No.
No, folks, we are only talking about purchase orders that need to be changed. So if you issue a purchase order today and it converts into the new platform, and it arrives, goods or services, right? You get what you ordered, you can receive in part or in whole against that purchase order. But you will not be able to issue a change order against a purchase order that converts from the current platform to the new platform. It's like changing banks. Today I'm banking in, well, I don't know, maybe that's not the great, I had an analogy and I didn't make a note of it that I thought would, make sense to folks, but you can only make the change in the platform in which it originated, right? You can receive against it because there's nothing different about that, right? There's nothing unique about that. And you're receiving what you ordered. So that's a balance, right? And that information then, if you're interfacing or integrating that data transfers out to your financial system. It's only if a purchase order needs to be changed. And I realize that in many cases, whatever, we don't know if we're going to need to make a change until we have to make the change, right? So that's why our guidance is, if it's a blanket purchase order situation and you're not going to receive everything before the end of December, then let's help you. We want to help you fix that now, if at all possible, or make the best of that situation now, right? If you don't know, you just don't know. And if a purchase order that converts from today's platform to January's platform needs a change, we'll help you with that process if we need to. But as Jan pointed out earlier when we talked about this, if we do cancel a purchase order and reissue, just like it happens today, fees get corrected because of that process, right? Fees get altered, fees get managed because of that process. Okay, good. Letha?
And that is a really good segue, because right after that one, Jan, who perked up, Stephanie Adams asked immediately after that, and I think Barb helped clarify it, but I want to give you a chance to respond. And again, this is about clarification and being clear. Stephanie Adams immediately followed Letha's question. How will EVA fees, she said captured, but be calculated, I would assume, is more the clarification there. If we cancel remaining dollars on POs in the current platform and reissue in the new platform, specifically if a vendor has reached the cap on EVA fees in the current system, how do we ensure that they do not get charged again when we issue the remaining dollars in the new system?
So as indicated, when change orders are issued, the fees adjust from the billing system. The EVA billing system is separate from the EVA platform. And so programmatically, we have to look at that and see when an order hit a cap. And so we may have to do some manual adjustments on our end, depending on the scenario. And we have our EVA billing support team that will be available after transition to work through those situations when a vendor or when a PO has hit a cap for a supplier and or the agency.
Thanks, Jan. Good stuff. All right. Mel Sanchez and Jan, you may want to jump in on this one too. Good morning. For the longest time, DGS has been saying that they would update the EVA platform. So what made DGS decide to switch to a new e-platform for purchasing? And then I hope that my inquiry is something we can answer. I don't know that we decided, right? This is all, it's a procurement and it's a contract. Okay. And the contract was for a service, and we're saying, and it's a managed service. So we're saying, well, we want, purchasing, and we have all these different tools that we need, and data and reports, and even some of the consulting help that CGI gives us. And long story short, and Jan may want to add in more detail, we reached the end of a very long-term contract and we did not have any further renewals. So just talking straight contract ended, we're out of renewals. It was time to compete. The market has changed a lot in the time we had been out. And, we wanted to go out and do a competition and see what the market looked like. One other thing too, is we had a lot of, having done this now for close to 20 years, part of the procurement process, we used it to address some key challenges that we identified. And through the procurement process, we were able to craft as a team with Jan as our contract officer, and our procurement officer, able to craft an RFP where not only did we go out and say where our contract ended, but we also said, these are key challenges we're seeing. And this is some key items we wanted to address by moving to new technology or looking at the market and potentially moving to new technology. So yes, CGI, who we have been partnered with for some time, won and was awarded this contract. But on the flip side, CGI is basically delivering, in the grand scheme of things, all sorts of new functionality to address these needs. So it's a same partner from a consulting perspective, but boy, we're seeing a lot of new technology. And you can go out, the RFP's publicly posted, and you can read about those key challenges and what we were looking to get addressed. And I'll also put in an advertisement during the summit at the EVA update. We're going to highlight some of those key challenges and how we met those key challenges in this new platform we're moving to. And Jan, I don't know if you want to add any more to that, but that's kind of why we are where we are.
I think to your point, we are in a very long contract. And so maybe 5 or 10 years ago, and looking out at the market, there was that thought of what can we do to enhance our current system? And as we got closer and closer to the end of the contract, it wasn't feasible to go and make enhancements to the current system. We'd seen in the marketplace so many new tools and new platforms that could bring so much more functionality that would be much easier for our end users to use. And as we got closer and closer to the end of our contract term, as a management team, we determined the best route to go was to issue that RFP and to, through the negotiation process, get what was best for the Commonwealth and for all of our users.
Thanks, Jan. Much appreciated.
And Shane, we
Oh,
have,
go ahead, Ken.
we're at the top of the 11 o'clock hour. We have 30 minutes. And if you wouldn't mind, there are a couple of questions that overlap with some consistency related to POs. So if we can kind of peruse down our question list, because not everybody can see this, let's see if we can kind of consolidate some of our answering of questions that have duplicated and get some of these knocked out. One answer for a lot of different questions that have been submitted. So we're going to take just a second for him to take a look over some of these duplicate kind of questions we're getting asked, as well as you guys should be able to see questions that have been answered. They move over into that answered tab. And just reminding you that if for whatever reason, I've received a few emails, if your colleagues or people that you work with or people that you support said, I couldn't get into the meeting or I was having problems, please remind them that the playback's going to be on the transition newsroom. It'll be also put out there through the Knowledge Center, so you can access that when you log into your buyer account on the current platform, and just make sure that they are able to listen to the playback and get some of their questions answered, and remind them about the resources in the transition newsroom. So hopefully I've tap danced long enough to allow Shane to get some answers together around some common questions related.
So is it some of the blanket PO stuff?
Yeah, some of the blanket
I
PO.
see Barb is typing to one. Tony had kind of asked that you're still hazy on the blanket POs, but I thought he provided a really good summary. And Barb can stop me if I get this, because I'm just going to reread it. And Barb can go, no, he didn't do a good job. But I think he did. So it's Tony. And he's kind of like, hey, I'm still a little bit hazy on the blanket POs. And so it's like, okay. But then he followed it up very quickly with, So I should do a change order to show only the amount of goods, services received. So if I have and I'll just use item, right? Or hours, 200 hours, and I'll only use 150. So change it down to match what you've received, 150, right? That is correct. Receive those items, yes. So 150 to match 150s, because I've changed it down. And that would close the order out, or there's also a button in the existing system, an option where you can close the order. And then wait, transition happens, and you could do a new blanket PO and EVA for the remaining 50. And you could reference the old numbers, like, this is a continuation of PO, blah, 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 in the new system. We had to do this due to transition, everything like that. So I think that's a really good.
And then Paula had asked a question that just follows that you were referencing about receiving
Paula,
against.
I'm not seeing that
I'm
one.
sorry,
No.
Pamela.
Pamela.
Yeah, sorry, Pamela
Oh,
Roberts.
what
Yes.
will be the last day we will be able to receive against POs in the old system? Noon on December 30th, if you want to get really technical. Now, again, do we want to wait that long? If we can, and this, I keep repeating what Barb said back, 20, 30 minutes ago. You guys internally need to kind of, what is a blackout period? Now, again, I'm a systems guy, right? I'm going to leave a lot of things up for you, pretty much everything up for you until noon on December 30th. Does that mean at 11:30 a.m. on December 30th, I should cut $1 million order? Likely no, because it's never going to get approved on time. It's never, you're never going to be able to finish it out. It's just it's going to go away. So that all gets back to, looking at the calendar, looking where it falls in, that you're in between Christmas and New Year's anyway. When is a good time to kind of say, hey, we need to put the brakes on things. Let's make sure things get finished and things get wrapped up before we cut over. And Barb is unmuted and has a contemplative look. So I'm going to let her.
I think this is one of those times what I would remind a lot of our users that we are on the policy side, especially, we are often asked, well, why do I have to do it that way? Why can't you guys be more flexible? So I'm just going to turn that right back around and say, we are trying to give you all as much flexibility as we manage this transition and this conversion as we possibly can, right? You guys know what those of you that follow the APSPM, you know what it says. And we are giving you the guidance, which is why we posted the electronic responses, the sourcing and contracting guidance, the closing out PO guidance, the way that we did, because we want you all to be able to make your own decisions to the maximum extent, feasible that you can through this. So while the system is available, while the current platform will be available to you until noon on December 30th, to Shane's point, does it make sense to wait that long? But to answer Pamela's question, yes, you absolutely can receive on the morning of December 30th if you have something that's sitting there, right? Absolutely. But if that PO converts into the new tool on the morning of January 3rd, and you need to receive those same things, you can still do the receiving in the new platform. So, and Tony, that was a very excellent summary for the closing out of current POs. And I was going to say that to the extent that makes sense for your business, we're with you 100% on that.
And taking Kim's guidance, I'm gonna hit through some really quick because I think I've got quick answers. Sonia McLaughlin, Shane, if we have orders in ordered status, but we are still receiving goods and or services against those purchase orders, do we have to close out the remaining balances and issue new purchase orders? No. So in the existing system, if it's ordered, but you haven't done receiving yet, they're going to convert because they're in ordered, meaning they've been fully approved. Those will convert, and in the new system, you can do receiving against them and go ahead and do all your receiving and knock them out. So that's a great question. Staying in that, if orders, Joanne Bryant, if orders are fully approved prior to cutoff, but no receiving has occurred on the order, will you be able to receive the order in the new platform? Yes, it will convert and you'll be able to receive in the new platform. Rebecca Taylor, you guys, it's like, I don't know if you plan it this way, but they're perfectly lined up. How do you look up an order from old EVA and new EVA? I've got great news for you. The numbers, the old numbers, even though we talked about, you're going to be generating new numbers when you do new orders, that conversion, those old numbers are coming over for reference, and you can actually search for them. In the top right-hand corner of the new platform you're going to be in, there's a search, and it searches everything. So you can search for your old PR and PO numbers, EP, PCO, whatever it is, and they will come up in the search so you can find them. So I love those questions. They were kind of like back to back to back to back to back there. So those are really good ones. But that's the great thing about this conversion. You will be able to do receiving. So, if you got some standard stuff, maybe, some folks mentioned earlier, like they have their VDC orders, maybe a weekly, monthly office supply order, and you're just getting those and doing the receiving. Those orders are going to convert, and you'll be able to do the receiving in the new system. Let's see. Let me go back up here.
I think that brings us back kind of at the top of some of the questions. Okay. So we had one, what will happen for orders that cannot be closed out in time before the transition. So that is in that top list. If you see, it's Camara.
Oh, yes. What will happen? Camara Bracy. What will happen for orders that cannot be closed out in time for the transition? For example, we have a mid-year conference that will be happening in January, where we are procuring speakers, bus transportation, and hotels that we have already put in EVA. However, payment will not be issued until after the conference in January. How does this affect our POs that we have submitted in EVA and issuing payments to vendors? That, if it's approved and then ordered, that PO is going to convert. You'll have it in the new system, and you'll be able to do your receiving against it, do your three-way match, and process those payments. The nuance comes in if you would need to make any changes prior to conversion. That's where you may have that situation where, oh no, we need to do a change order. You would actually then have to do a cancellation and then reissue in the new system. And then you could reference the old number and say, oh, we converted this. We thought, we'd just be able to do receiving. Turns out we had to make a change, and that's the case with that. As Barb mentioned, her staff is available to help you through those issues. As Jan mentioned, if that has to happen, any cancellations are going to back out. So don't worry about fees, right? It's going to back out all those fees. You're going to issue your new order. The fees will be adjusted in that case. So it's not like the supplier is going to get double hit with fees. They will get any rebates, right, if cancellations are processed. So that was one of Jan's clarifications. So,
and I think, again, just to reiterate, I'm going to say it again. I hope that I say it 20 more times before we conclude today, which is about 20 more minutes, that you need to go out to the transition newsroom. You need to visit the conversion information section, and you need to look at that conversion roadmap. It is definitely your guide, and it gives it exactly by module, by status, and it will really help answer some of these frequently asked questions, which is why we are making that your source of truth for frequently asked questions. We've had great questions come over through our user group, but in an effort to consolidate and provide you accurate information, we want to point you to that conversion roadmap to be your source of answering some of these frequently asked questions that you have around modules, POs, public postings, and all of these types of things.
All right, good stuff. I've got two that are very similar, so I want to knock them out, from Susan Bosch and Sonia McLaughlin. We only use EVA for advertisements. What is the transition plan for the new platform? And I think very similar, Sonia. Shane, what if you're using the VBO to post an RFP? How would that work? I got great news for you. Well, you may not like the first thing I'm about to say, but I got great news from a solution standpoint. VBO buyer is going away. It's not going to exist anymore. But this team, this system, we're moving everybody into one consolidated EVA sourcing module. But I have fabulous news for you if you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not ready for all these functions and electronic response and scoring, and I don't have that many people, blah, 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 you know, it's too much, it's too much. There are really clean, quick steps for you to issue your business opportunities using attachments, not having to do electronic response, not having to do all the functionality. Now, I can't remember what user group it was again, but Mark Orlando, who's on this call, that might have been the October one.
Yeah, it was the October user
Okay.
group.
There was an October user group and the video is posted. You
The
can
simple
fast forward
sourcing.
through all my garbage and go right to where Mark's doing the demo. He does what's called a simple sourcing demonstration. Now, this sourcing tool, it's awesome. It's got so many functions and features and scoring and evaluation teams and vendor performance is wrapped into, oh man, it's just crazy. But there is a simple and clean path that it's a bridge. What you're doing now in VBO Buyer, where you're doing attachment based, maybe not taking electronic responses. It's a couple clicks. You key in some data. You can put your RFP in as a Word document, a PDF, whatever it is, your specs, your price list, and you can issue those things and get them on the street and get them publicly posted. All right. The beauty of this is we're all on the same tool. And as you get more comfortable and you and your staff get more comfortable, you can grow into this functionality. So there is a simple, clean, what we think very easy to use path so you can do your business and get your solicitations posted. And then from there, it's your comfort level. And we want you to grow. And hint, hint, if you come to the summit and you come to EVA Update, I'm going to be talking about some of those things. Lisa, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to add, because I think it's a nice segue for a question that Robin Whitley had submitted, saying we are not a state agency and therefore not mandated to post on EVA. We use EVA because it is an exceptional procurement tool. We do not draft purchase orders through EVA. We do want to continue using EVA. How do you suggest a non-mandated agency use EVA in its new platform? And I think what Shane hinted at there with starting with sourcing, using it to get your post out there is obviously step one, but there's a lot of other features that are coming with this tool, including contract management. We see a lot of our non-mandated state agencies looking to leverage this instead of procuring a system outside of EVA, and it's connected nicely with the sourcing modules as well. And then with that, you can grow. There's a vendor performance piece that comes with that, some risk management. So as Shane had mentioned, and the segue also with the summit is there's a lot of opportunities to grow, and that's both for our state agencies that are mandated to use EVA and as well as our local governments and other public entities that choose to use EVA. So great question, Robin.
I love it. Good stuff. Good stuff for sure. Let's go through. Michael Graham has a question. Let's say I did a solicitation in VBO because I thought it would be awarded before changeover. Now it looks like it will not be. Please remind us when cutoff is to take final action, and it will disappear if it's not completed by that date. So I want to clear up a couple things. The public posting itself will not disappear. So what's publicly posted is still going to be out there. Your last date to take action, like no award, post your bid tabulation, is noon on December 30th. And again, these are things you want to have a list of. You want to make sure you've taken care of that. Do I have any recourse to get it into the new system? No, not really. I even am almost remiss to put this out, but we do have methods. We do have methods to potentially do data fixes and things like that. And I just saw a chat come up. There are no December 1st, no new VBO buyer postings or amendments to existing postings that would, cause you to have to extend that date. However, from starting December 1st, even though I cannot do anything new, if I have something existing, I can award it, and do my bid tabulation so that I can wrap those up. before we cut over. So just to be clear, since I thought I saw that pop up.
There's a couple of questions around supplier, and I'd like to take those next. So we can.
Oh,
kind of
well
wrap
then you go right
those
ahead.
out. But I think Lisa maybe wanted to add something to that last little piece.
I was just gonna mention, there was a quick comment that came in that said, Shane said VBO. And just to make a little distinguish for how our terminology is, that will continue a little bit. So VBO, we refer to as the Virginia Business Opportunities page, and that is where the advertisements are publicly posted. There is a tool, VBO Buyer, that is used by our buyers to post out there to the Virginia Business Opportunities page. Virginia Business Opportunities page is not going away. It'll stay there and be live after, for as long as the EVA program is around. But the VBO Buyer application, that when you log in as a buyer and you go to click that post, that will be sunsetted, where you won't be able to do any new or amendment solicitation after December 1st.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So there are a couple of questions coming in about suppliers. And one was from Elizabeth Banks. How will suppliers receive orders who do not accept electronic orders? We're so happy that this new system is going to support their being able to, they are the suppliers being able to go into their supplier account and access their orders. So it's going to be a one-stop shop, if you will, for them. So there's not going to be this separate support of accessing orders through Ariba. They'll be able to access those. You can also still send them the order. So if Shane, you need to jump in to clarify anything.
Yeah, so for vendors that are like state entered and don't take ownership of their account.
Right.
Or there is still an ad hoc method for emergencies, I'll throw that out there, or for confirming orders. There is an ability you can print to PDF and then do I call it manual delivery. I'm not going to tell you how to do it. You can fax it, you can email it, but you're doing it yourself.
Right.
And also I know the PO print roll will still fire. So you know when you're in that condition, so you won't be like, oh, everything should be great. Like you'll know you're in that condition, that'll still fire. So there's still options to do manual delivery, however you would do that.
But for our suppliers that are registered, they didn't have that old method of having that Ariba account and getting their orders electronic and selecting it that way. They will now be able to access their orders directly from their supplier account in this new platform, which I think is super exciting. The next question, Sidna, thank you so much for asking about, has training been provided or scheduled for our suppliers regarding the changes Shane was just speaking about? So our changes in general for our suppliers, we do have training assets that are being developed, and those are in process. For our content drops for our suppliers, we're looking at December, and we're focusing on what do they need to know in order to be able to navigate around in the new account day one go live, with a lot of those training resources becoming available closer to our go live date and being able to support them. So what do we want day one them to be able to do? Be able to bid. We want them to absolutely be able to bid and be able to access their orders. So we're focusing on those training assets. There are communications that will be going out. Those communications will not only be emailed, but they will be duplicated again, where? On the transition newsroom. And we will be able to work with our training team. We're talking through where we're going to post things. So we'll be making sure that we communicate. And those again are in process. So thank you for that great question. And then will there be a step-by-step guide for end users to utilize during the training? And those step-by-step guides, yes, we are going to have different type of training assets available. So those will be self-paced, self-guided, and then we'll have fact sheets, a lot of the different types of training assets that are available for you. We're also going to create training specifically for our suppliers. And then that training won't stop. That will always be out there. So if somebody needs to go and they need to understand how to navigate their supplier account or where to access their order, we call it acknowledge. You're going to learn some new terms, acknowledge their orders and create maybe a receipt shell. They'll be able to watch those different training assets and learn how to do those different processes whenever they might need on demand. So hopefully that answers those. So will training of our end users just mentioned be live and hosted by DGS, or will we have to do it as train the trainers? And that's for our buyers. So Crystal is asking, will training for end users just mentioned to be live and hosted by DGS? So again, there's a combination of different training that's being offered. And I would again encourage you to come out on the Transition Newsroom and visit that training page that we have set up, because it does walk you through the learning journey that you might be looking forward to, which is a combination of user guides, fact sheets, self-guided, and even potentially some live training as well, depending on which organization you work with. So Crystal, thank you for asking that question around training. All right, continuing on in the last 7 minutes or so that we have, let's see what other questions we want to tackle.
There's a couple, Kim, at the top that Lisa marked.
Yeah,
that
quite,
we wanna
yes,
take. They're kind of going down the same vein a little bit.
absolutely. So from Patty and from Susan, Lisa, if you'd like to take those.
Can you see
Sure,
them,
I'm going to
Lisa? Do you
shift
want-
gears because I was typing questions too.
Do
So
you want me
Patty,
to read those to you, Lisa? or do
I've
you-
got, yeah, you
Okay.
can read it, sure.
Oh, okay. So from Patty Innocente, I think. I'm hoping I'm not messing that up, Patty. Is it possible to post an addendum in sourcing and contracting for a solicitation issued prior to 12/15?
Yes, you will be able to continue to post your addendums. We do encourage you to have those wrapped up, but you will be able to post your addendums after the 15th.
Cool. And the next one, Susan Bosch. Are all users of VBO Buyer required to take training before using the updated system?
Not required, but encouraged. There'll be quick.
Strongly
guides.
encouraged, I think would be the.
Yeah, there'll be quick guides available as well. And honestly, Shane might slap my hand for this and Sarah, but I struggled with Quick Quote as a procurement officer previously, not gonna lie, but I will say that in this new tool, I've kind of picked it up kind of easily. I'll be curious to see those of you that are in there and doing good even without the training, but we're gonna have training assets and quick guides available for you, but no, not required.
Cool. I'll take another one here just to clarify, because I think it's a good clarification question from Kimberly Gross. I work at NVCC, Northern Virginia Community College. So when I come back to work on January 3rd, I will be able to log into EVA with current username and password and place an order. And she said, providing I receive training. And again, we strongly encourage it, but it's not required. Of course, check with who you report to, obviously. They may require it. I asked because I heard you mention something about, accounts or something. No, January 3rd, it's going to be up. Your user ID and password is transferring over. We're going to be working, for those of you that use single sign-on or federated identity management, that should be up as well. So if you're used to just hitting a couple links once you're in your system and getting into EVA, that ought to be working as well on January 3rd. So again, everything's converting. Your user ID and password are converting, no changes there. And all of the access that you have now should transfer over. So if you have access to Quick Quote, you'll have that. If you have access to VBO Buyer or sourcing and contracting, you'll have access to sourcing. If you're a requisitioner, you'll have access to requisitioning. That's all going to convert and transfer over. So I thought that was a good question.
And then we have two fee related questions. And I know that Jan, the one from Corey, you marked that you'd like to answer. And then there's one just below that, if we can kind of make that two answers in one. So from Corey and Ken, if you'll just go ahead and address those.
Sure. Corey's question was on blanket orders where the vendor pays their fees based on the total of the order. When they are canceled in December and resubmitted in January, will the vendor have to pay the fee again on the remainder of the blanket order when approved? So when the purchase order is canceled, the fees are deducted on the invoice. And when the new PO is issued, and so let's say if it's for a lesser amount, only the new fees would apply. So there potentially is a credit that's going to be on that supplier's invoice if your PO is for a lower amount. And so it would deduct from any other fees that they have. So we're not going to duplicate fees for any of our suppliers. Ken's question talking about blanket orders, sometimes invoke the maximum amount of EVA fees or have our fee cap for our suppliers. Those would, I would say they're probably not blanket orders, because usually blanket orders are for the small repetitive type things. Fee purchase orders that hit the cap are usually in the thousands, 50,000 and up, 100,000 and up before they hit any of our fee caps. And our billing system calculates when those fees hit the cap. And depending on when that adjustment is made, as I mentioned, we will be looking at if a vendor has already paid the fee cap, and we may have to do some manual adjustments on our end. So our billing team will be here to support that.
Thank you so much, Jan. And if you'll just mark Corey and Ken's questions as answered, and that will remove them. Just as done. Thank you so much. So we're winding down. We've got Shane, go ahead. Let's see what else we might be able to not be knocked out in the last couple of minutes. When we conclude, there may be about a handful of questions that are left unanswered. What we'll do is we'll take those as takeaway, make sure that they get answered. We do have your contact information, who asked the question, and make sure that we follow up if needed. And then we're going to rely on this playback being posted as your source of information for various questions that got asked today for you to revisit this content. So go ahead, Shane, see if we've got about 1 more minute left. If there's another question, that would be a good one just to share with the group.
I'll take one that's a little bit different slant from what we've been talking about today, just to answer something different. And it's from Angela Bailey, and it says, will there be an app to download on the phone for those of us who approve from phone when traveling, or do you use the same app? That app, actually the buyer app, no. But the new platform is very mobile friendly. So, and Mark, don't let me get out of bounds here. I know we haven't called on Mark very much today, but thank you for being here, Mark. But the mobile, certainly you can approve. I'm pretty sure you can receive. What am I missing from a mobile standpoint? Because it's not a mobile app. It's going to be a mobile friendly version of the website that will fit on your phone.
Yeah, so just real quickly, they call it responsive design. So
There
if
you
you're
go.
if you're accessing it from your phone, I think somebody asked a question about how do I do approvals. Yes, the app itself goes away, but just like current EVA, there is a URL you can use. Where it'll be different is the new solution will automatically recognize that you're on a phone and give you a mobile responsive look and feel to do your approval from the phone. And I think that's where we'll start with just approval, but over time we'll grow to more and more features available to you directly from your phone.
Yeah, and that's a great point from Mark, because it's responsive design. It opens us up to maybe do, the next one that comes into my mind is receiving, right? Somebody with their phone just, going through and doing receiving on their phone. So thank you.
And we're going to go ahead. I think Lisa had one that she wanted to ask, and this will be the last, and we'll wrap things up for today's meeting.
Awesome. Thanks, Kim.
There was 2 questions that kind of came in under this vein that I thought, our user group might want to hear about or have an answer to if it was something that they had received. So one was, will we be able to have access to old EVA for any length of time after transition, such as quick quote? And there was another question also about, how long will the current platform be available after the transition? Specifically, if a change order was not processed, how long will we be able to do those cancellations in the current EVA? And Shane, I am going to spit that over to you real quick, just to clarify what's going to be happening when we talk about transition.
Well, there won't be any access to the old system. I can tell you that right now. It's going to be gone. Anything that had a last modified date, something happened to it within the last 2 years, will come over, including attachments. So if you have anything older than 2 years old, and meaning you haven't touched it in 2 years, you could have a long running contract if you're doing receiving on it or change orders or whatever. Well, that's going to have a recent last modified date. So it's coming over, including all its attachments. If you have anything older than 2 years old that you haven't touched, you haven't done anything with, and I'm seeing some stuff like, well, what do I do with these attachments? If you have attachments on something that's older than 2 years that you haven't done anything to modify it in some capacity, go out and pull the attachments down and save them off somewhere. You're going to need to get them. Now, those transactions will be available in the data warehouse, but attachments are not available in the data warehouse. Now, we are crafting a solution for those of you that use the sourcing and contracting module to keep your procurement file complete. So for things that don't transfer over, but are maybe within that 5-year window, you'll be able to go in and pull up the solicitation and the bids and the attachments and all the things so that you have a complete procurement file, but that'll be done through the data warehouse and through reporting. But for requisitions for orders that are older than, the last 2 calendar years, and you haven't done anything with them in those 2 years, and you need to grab an attachment, you need to get it now. I'm hoping that's not the case. A lot of the stuff, you're talking a 2-year period, you're probably active. You probably have done something and it's going to convert.
Well, we have reached our time limit. We've gone over by a couple of minutes. I just want to thank everyone for all of the great questions. We're leaving with about 11 that are open, and we'll make sure to follow up. We answered 66 questions today and the time we had allotted. And with all of us enjoying the gift of gab, I think that we've done really well to stay on task. So I've put in the chat for everyone to remind you, visit the transition newsroom, visit those resources that are there. I know personally, sometimes I just want somebody to tell me something, but you can believe what you're reading on the internet this time. That information is as up to date as we have. So please use it as a point of truth for what to do with different types of transactions and what's converting and what's not. Thank you again for joining us panelists and providing all this great information. We will have this playback available on the Transition Newsroom and on the Knowledge Center, and that will happen. I'm gonna, this week, but hopefully by the end of today and into tomorrow. And just thank you again for your continued support of this transition. We know that we can only be successful by measuring our success by your success, and that day one we will be ready to have uninterrupted purchasing in the Commonwealth. So we're excited about full steam ahead and everything that's coming in 2022. So thank you again. Thank you, everyone. And I just wish you the best rest of the week that you can possibly have.